Hey guys and gals, welcome to SPP. I think we're finally to the point where the episodes are no longer this weird time warp where I don't know when they're going to air, and it's returning to a semblance of normal here after a very chaotic summer, which is
I expected Dave just to chime in with Time Warp, and he didn't, and I feel disappointed.
The Rocky Horror song?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
you
do
wanna
like.
hit that, Dave? You wanna?
No, not right now.
I just listened to the SPP Best of, and Audra did a good job of making us sound like we're more interesting than we are.
Is that
So that was
live
good.
on the feed?
Yeah, it's live on the feed. Of course, by the time people hear this, it will have been a month ago.
Oh,
So,
well, I'll listen to that. I'll listen to that on my next walk. Actually, I'm excited to hear that.
all right. So, so today we're going to be talking to Honoree Corder, who is going to talk about. She's got a lot of stuff going on, but the topic of today's show is prosperity for writers, which I anticipate some Dave eye-rolling moments today.
I just saw the title. I was like, "What the hell is this?"
Because it's the sort of thing. Dave out. It's the sort of thing that could slide into a little woo-woo, whatever. But it's mindset stuff, and there's a poverty mindset with authors that shouldn't it keeps us poor.
Yeah, I agree with that, and it was funny because she called and she asked me to do. Well, actually, I'll save this story for when she's on. Better then.
Sounds like a plan. So, did anything cool happen this week? Why can't I get my mic? What's going on with the stand? What's wrong with it? It's like that scene in Friends where Ross is trying to put his pants on and he keeps going, "What is wrong with these pants?"
Are you having trouble keeping it up?
Yeah, I am. It's the leg is in the wrong place. Anyway, go ahead. So, anything cool?
Well, I always have something cool, so I can go last if anybody else has something. Dave.
Okay, I'll go. I started watching Sense8 on Netflix.
So did
how do you
I.
like it?
Well,
How do you guys like it?
love it. I love it. It's right up my alley.
How far are
Only
you?
one episode in though.
I'm only on the second episode.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I saw something cool though. I don't know if you've noticed this before, but you know how you have the language options and the subtitle options?
Yeah.
Well, one of the language options is for blind people and actually describe what's going on. And I don't think I've seen that on Netflix before.
Wait a minute. Hold
that's
on.
really awesome.
Hold on. Do I have to be the one to point out that expecting blind people to read something to know what's going on the screen kind of defeats the purpose? Does it read it?
Well,
Is
it must read it out. It must read it out.
Okay.
It tells what's going on, and then it'll leave room for the dialogue. But what I thought was cool is if you were to watch it with that turned on, it seems a lot like script writing. It's a very simple, quick language to describe the scene, and as a writer, I like it because it gives me a new way to think about a visual that I'm watching. Usually, when I'm watching something, I'm pulling in that information and trying to come up with my own things. But I like to hear how somebody else describes it because it's even a quicker way to do it.
Yeah,
And
that's awesome.
That might actually help with the script writing.
Yeah, I should start that. I always watch with subtitles. Always.
I do watch with subtitles, but usually not with that audio explanation.
Yeah, I've never.
I won't. I won't leave it on for the whole episode because it's kind of annoying to hear somebody describe what's going on. But to rewatch it again with that on is pretty cool, and to also see what they choose to say, describe, and what they omit is also interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. There's so much to say about that show, but it's hard, especially if you're so early.
I'm curious how well the show will do. I heard, the most recent thing I read was a week ago that it hadn't yet been confirmed for a second season. But while watching the first two episodes, I was imagining somebody that is homophobic watching it losing their shit.
Yeah.
And what's funny there is that as a creator
As a homophobic?
myself, as a homophobe, no, as a creator myself, it was funny because I could see Larry Wachowski became, I believe, Lana Wachowski, right? And so I'm just imagining that personal. There's no way that was coincidence. There's no way that it wasn't Larry transitioned to Lana, and that didn't make them say, well, let's. We need to have those characters, and that's just interesting because I can see similar things where things that we have experience with that are in our lives make it into our work.
Yeah, there's 8 characters in the show, and one of the main characters is a transgender, and one of the other main characters is gay. So there's definitely
That's too much gayness in my show. on a characters, there 8 characters. There should be 1 half gay. That's it. No more.
half gay.
Just a little.
It has to be a woman. It has to be a pretty lesbian. It can't be a gay guy. That's just wrong. God doesn't like that. I will say though, I am curious as the show goes on if I didn't find it too heavy-handed, but I can see it that some people might, like with the gay rights and the other, like they're trying to tell a lot of stories, and they're trying to. Not a morality lesson. I don't know, maybe there is. I only watched 2 episodes. And I like it because I think as an artist you ought to talk about things that speak to you. But I'm curious how people that are opposed to that or are closed-minded will view it if they'll just turn it off and not even
it's just
give the
not
story
for
a
them.
chance.
I mean, what I love about that more, I love the Wachowskis because I think they're so ambitious and they just want to paint with such a big canvas, and I love that about them. And I love that this show, it was so unapologetic. Like the first episode's like an hour and a half, and it doesn't really get to the point. And there's
I thought you were gonna talk about the unapologetic gay stuff, because I just remember the scene where the two gay characters are right, and she just drops this big huge strap on the floor, and
it's just like super wet, right? Yes,
you won't see that on TV. That shocked me. That it was on, because I was thinking of this like as a TV show, not as like an HBO. If it was on HBO, or Showtime, I'd be less shocked. But I was just coming to it like,
I would have
this
been
is like
even
a show.
shocked then. It was the single most graphic image I've ever seen, like on something that wasn't porn, because it wasn't porn. But it was. I mean, to see how like wet it was just like TMI. Like okay, but all right.
I just got some comments here that our show has just crossed the 1/8 gay allowed per threshold, and they're unsubscribing.
But what I do love about this show the most is the characters. You really feel for them, and you feel for the transgender character, how tortured she is, especially the scenes with her mother. That is just that just cuts you. And
don't ruin anything in episode 2 here for me.
I'm not going to ruin anything. And one of the the thing I like about somebody telling this kind of story, like I like when fiction, and I think TV has done a good job of this, of pushing boundaries, of opening people's eyes to things that they're like against. And it kind of normalizes, like gay people were like shunned just 20 years ago. It's just absolutely, they had to pretty much hide for the most part. And TV has done a lot to let people know that gay people are just like anyone else, and you have them friends, you have them in your family. And it's really helped them become accepted, and I like that. And the fear I have is when something is too heavy-handed, that people immediately revolt, and they never get that message, never comes through. And I don't think that's the case with this story, especially with the second episode. The way they tell it is something that it just really speaks to your heart, if you have one. That you should just really. Because I've always felt bad for especially the whole gay rights thing, about people like that were in a hospital or something and they had no access to their own family. That just tears at me, and that they could demonstrate that in a fiction in a way that comes across, might speak to somebody in a way that they finally get it. And I think that's awesome. But the other thing I really love about this show, and I hope it doesn't end, is the mystery. You don't know what's going on, and that absolutely is like perfect.
The sense of mystery is great, and it's the Wachowskis, so it's gorgeous. And there's a really nice mix of philosophical thought and action, which they're
and ayahuasca.
And there's ayahuasca. Ayahuasca Joe makes an appearance.
I was going to make an ayahuasca joke a long time ago, but then it got stale, about Dave talking about insight into the story. And
I brought it back.
Bring it on around. Sean, do you have anything? I have something, but it's not a very good one. So.
Well, okay. So mine's old, but whatever.
Well, it'd just be a month older, so it's great. So
no, but this is years old. So I've started.
Sean's going to talk about the Civil War and how that.
I've started to rewatch Veronica Mars, which is just a super. I mean, it's relevant, and I'll get there, but it's a super underappreciated show. Like I really. You've never seen it?
I'm the only person, it seems, that's never seen it.
Me too.
No, lots of people haven't seen it. That's the whole point. Like, it couldn't.
Well, I hear a lot of people talking about how awesome it was and stuff, and like they were excited when the Kickstarter, and like it was just one of those things that never saw it.
It's just a really good show, and Kristen Bell, who plays Veronica, is just so fantastically cast. I can't imagine, anybody else being Veronica. And it's basically like a detective, it's like a detective show where there's a new mystery each week, but it's set in high school in this city called Neptune, which is a very thinly veiled Newport Beach, California. And there's an overarching mystery that takes place through the whole first season, which who murdered Veronica's best friend Lily Kane, and it's so good. And
campy?
No, it's not campy at all.
I got the feeling it was campy, and that's why I never watched it.
No, there's nothing campy about it. It's clever, but it's not campy.
Like Gilmore Girls clever?
No, it's a very different vibe. It's almost it's a little noir. It's like high school noir.
Like Scooby-Doo?
No, not like Scooby-Doo.
Would have gotten away with it if it weren't for Veronica.
What's awesome too is that there's it's we're looking for shows to watch with the children right now as they get older, and this seemed like a cool one.
Sense8 wasn't on that list.
Sense8 wasn't on the list. And what's awesome is it's I knew Haley would love this, and I just begged Ethan to just give it a chance. And now he's theorizing on who murdered Lily, and he's really into it. And last night he's like, one more episode, and that's great because he never does that. But it's just a really cool show, and why I think it's relevant to people listening to this is it's an instance of a show it never really found its audience. It wasn't. I think it would succeed today because you need smaller audiences than you did back then. This was back in the network days, and you just needed to be a huge hit to stay on the air. And it only lasted 3 seasons. And the guy, Rob Thomas, not Matchbox 20 Rob Thomas, but Veronica Mars Rob Thomas, had a pitch for a 4th season that I thought was really awesome, where it went forward a few years and she was working for the FBI, and that would have been cool. But it never happened. The network never picked it up. Then he wanted to make a Veronica Mars movie, and that never ever happened. But then he went straight to the fans with Kickstarter, and they had a hugely successful Kickstarter, and he made a movie, and that movie came out, and now he's written 2 different books that are, and I've listened to one of them as an audiobook, and it's narrated by Kristen Bell, and it's fantastic. It's like somebody reading you an episode of Veronica Mars, and it's just cool. It's kind of like, I mean, people listening to this should be interested in that. This is somebody who made their art in one way, found a very fiercely devoted audience, and then was able to, use a different couple of mediums. Now they're writing books, but they also made a movie, and that's just really exciting.
I like that, and I saw some. I can't remember who it was. Somebody had basically a series that had ended had become a comic book. And
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
It wasn't that one, but that might be. Yeah, that's an example, but that wasn't one I was thinking of. But yeah, that's cool. I like when you can go outside your own medium and continue a story.
Because there's great characters, and the one I read was Veronica Mars and the Case of the $1,000 Tan Line, and it was great.
Yeah, that sounds campy.
But it's not.
I'm waiting for the musical version.
It's more noir than camp.
Okay.
But anyway, Johnny, you have anything cool?
Well, I actually just invited Honoree, so I think if I were to start something cool, that would be pointless. So we'll see how quickly she hops in here.
Oh, she's fast. There she is.
Yeah, look at that.
It's because she wants to be prosperous, so she's right on time.
That's right. That's what you do. So welcome to the show, Honoree Corder.
Hi.
Hi, Honoree.
How are you?
Okay.
We've been lucky enough to meet Honoree before, but Dave has not because he doesn't travel.
Much like Leftovers.
I'm sure she's disappointed.
I am.
Well, you'll meet in September.
I know. I'm looking forward to it.
She
It's my
almost
birthday.
stomped out. Actually, she was so angry that Dave wasn't there, and she threw stuff. It was violent. It was emotionally terrible.
Totally. Yes. Yes.
So Honoree has 1,000 things going on. So the most relevant, but one of the newer things is she wrote a book called Prosperity for Writers: A Writer's Guide to Creating Abundance. But she also has, I mean, it's almost too much to go through, because I asked her for highlights, because we've met Honoree in person, and she's just a bundle of ideas, and so I asked her for the highlights, like what can I tell, what can't I tell, and what are the best accolades, and she sent me like a lot of shit.
Sorry.
Including things like I had forgotten about this, like the your plans to live on a bus, be mobile, and do a podcast like Entrepreneur on a Bus. It's much like Speed on a Bus.
Not as traumatic.
Yeah, so I mean, you've done over a dozen books, including a lot of. One of the things that really impressed us in person was the amount of just like print sales. Like you've just sold a ton of print
direct from her website too.
Direct from your website. So rather than me, I know that I asked you for the bio, but rather than me trying to parse it, why don't you tell people what you think is most important for them to know, Honoree?
Oh gosh, so what I think is most important for them to know is that if I can do it, they can do it. So by it, I mean make a living as a writer. So what you're talking about is I've made some money selling books privately and directly to corporations, companies, individuals, to help them grow their businesses. And it's just kind of a side thing that happened by request, and then I took it bigger. So I'm happy to talk about any aspect of that.
So the thing that people listening right now would want to do more than anything else is something you do on the side. Right? It's an extra. It's an add-on to your life.
Yeah.
Got it.
And she's a real natural with. Go ahead, Honoree.
I was more referring to if I could make a living as a writer. So I've created enough income to live off of my writing, and that was my whole point for writing the book Prosperity for Writers. The idea that I got at the summit was to encourage those who think making money as a writer is a fool's errand. So I think part of what I was trying to say is helping people to think differently and to expand their thinking and think out of the box about how they could make money from their writing. Different ideas, and also the fact that it's possible. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and what I was just starting to say, and this is maybe sideline to what we were just saying, but might as well finish the thought, is your successful single mom book series, and then you branched off into successful single dads and so on, is like it just I wish I had a book to hold up. The branding is so smart, like you just have this intuitive grasp of marketing and what sells and what. Am I articulating it all, Sean? I remember that's one of the things that really impressed us a ton was.
Yeah, well, one thing that I think you could absolutely say about Honoree is that her instincts are super sharp. That's really obvious. So where there is a lot of hard work involved, on the way to success, I think Honoree has great instincts that really kind of pave that path for her a lot, which makes it easier. But I like this whole premise behind her book, which is prosperity for writers. Like a lot of writers don't make money because they think they can't, or they think they don't deserve to. Not that Dave will want to read this book because he's Dave, but this book is written for Dave, right? Like this is Dave. So I don't know, was 2 months ago or something. Honoree's been trying to get me on the phone for a while, and we finally hooked up.
Too good for it.
Well, no, I was just really busy, and we talked literally on the day before I left for vacation. Was when we finally wrangled the call, and when she sent the first email, she said, "Hey, I want to interview you about what stands in your way of thinking you deserve to make money as a writer." And I'm like, nothing. Like that's going to be a really short interview. I have nothing to say about that. I absolutely think I deserve to make money as a writer. But I do think that I'm the outlier there. I think that a lot of writers, they either do feel, and I will say that that is what kept me in it for a long time, because I thought that writing was a poor man's profession, and I thought of myself as an entrepreneur and not a writer. And even now, I tend to think of myself as not a writer so much as an entrepreneur who writes. You know, it's one of my sharpest arrows, certainly, but it's not necessarily what defines me. And I think that that's because there is some of that baggage there. You know, you can't be just a writer who is also a really successful earner.
That's what people tend to believe. And when I've talked to anyone about the book, I will say, have you ever heard of a starving artist? And they're like, yeah, that's all of them. All artists are starving, and they're not. But the ones that we see seem to be considered unicorns. If you make money from your art, there must be something special or magical about you.
Or you're a sellout.
Or something
or
wrong with you,
sellout.
right? It's one of those.
Right, rather than
right.
the
so
fact that there are a whole bunch of people who just make money.
Right, I think we have a slight delay, so that'll be fun to wrangle. But one of the things I said before about as I said it in sort of jest with Davis. This will be a show where you'll roll your eyes, but there is the mindset that you have. Your expectations do determine, in my very strong opinion, do determine the results you get. And so the example that I like to use is my son tends to be more pessimistic than I personally would like. I think that's the cross I've been given to bear, because just to mess with me, because I'm optimistic. So I'll be like, well, if you go outside and you're looking around for money, you're more likely to find money. I mean, not literally money.
Oh, literally.
In his case, it would be. In his case, it would be literally. Like he's looking around for he goes and checks the drop chutes of vending machines to see if there's any quarters. And I'm like, if you don't look, you're not going to find. And I think that if you go into writing with the idea that it's a sideline, I'm going to be a starving artist, I'm going to play into that idea of being a starving artist, then guess what? That's what you're going to get. Whereas if you go in expecting, no, this is something where people make money, and that's one of the first things that really worked, that helped me about the self-publishing podcast when we started it, was talking to people who, guess what? They're actually making money doing this and seeing that it's possible.
I think there's also a thing too where it becomes a part of your identity, where you feel like maybe your art isn't worth as much if you're making money on it. It somehow cheapens it, and that by starving, or by struggling as much, it gives your creativity more value or more worth, or your insights are deeper somehow, because they're coming from a place of torture, and and I think that's just not accurate. I remember.
Is that how you think? I think.
Sometimes I remember. No. Okay. I remember the very first time. This was back in 2000.
All right, it's on.
I'm gonna say. So in 2009, I wrote a post for our Collective Inkwell blog, which at the time was just like it was freelance work is what it was. There was no fiction being written. And I didn't know Dave as well as I do now back then, and I didn't
If
know
only you knew.
Right, no, I just didn't. I didn't know that he would object in principle to this whole thing. But the post was the myth of the tortured writer, and I wrote
that I still stand by. I'm not talking about the money thing though. The money thing, I don't see writing as something where you have to be broke. I think it's definitely a way to make a living. I see it as difficult there are difficult things to do, like find an audience, grow your audience, stuff like realistic things. If you go into writing, so I think a lot of people actually are the opposite. They go into writing, think they're going to be millionaires, and reality is quite a bit different than that. They think it's easier than it is. I think there's a lot of people on the opposite end of that spectrum. I think I'm pretty realistic with my expectations. The tortured artist thing is a little bit different. I think if you have a screwed up life, you sort of withdraw into yourself, and you are more in touch with not only yourself but other people, and it gives you an ability to write things in a more realistic way than somebody that's not quite as in touch. There's a lot of people that are superficially aware of other people and problems and stuff, but they've never really been through hell and back. And I think there is a difference in writing between, you know, somebody that's all super happy and somebody that's just a miserable person, and I think the writing is a little bit better from miserable people. That's just my personal opinion. All right, I'll let you get on with the show now.
Yeah, okay. I would like to bring the evidence of James Patterson, who is, you know, or J.K. Rowling, like the most successful J.K. Rowling.
I think she was miserable for a while.
Okay, but she hasn't been miserable in a long time. She certainly wasn't miserable.
Well, I don't say you have to stay miserable. I'm just saying you have to have an awareness of reality, and that helps. We're getting way off subject here.
Okay, all right. So let's stick with actual prosperity here. So, so you just referred to yourself as realistic, right?
Oh yeah, I am the most real person you'll ever meet.
No, I would strongly argue with that and say pessimistic. Because even when checks are coming in and the numbers are high, you're like, it's only a matter of time until it ends, right? We're done. Like, this is it.
Yeah, it was fun to imagine the discussion that Sean and I had about an hour before the show, imagining Dave being part of that discussion. We had a very optimistic, happy discussion.
Right. Johnny's like, this is the best day ever. Okay, here's a good example. So this isn't about prosperity, but this morning I started the Crash screenplay. Right? This is Dave's baby. I started the Crash screenplay, and I sent him an all caps Slack that said, I started the Crash screenplay, awesome. No response.
So, I wasn't awake! How can I respond to something if I'm not awake? And when I did respond, I was taking a shower and getting ready. So I quickly just acknowledged I wrote thank you or something to that effect.
No, the thank you was for something. Thank you was for something else. All right,
it was for both. Don't read into what I write, jerk. I was trying to get ready for the show. You know, I have to wake up to be here.
My point is, the sky is always falling. The good times are always going to end. You're going to have to struggle for the good. And I think that is a mindset that gets in your way. It is a mindset. Dude, you do get in your own way.
I'll agree. No, I agree.
And
it's not a joy being this realistic. It's a pain to know the horrible things that lie in wait for all of us.
I think that having a prosperity mindset is something that it's another tool in the tool belt, and it's one that's quite dull on your belt. That's all.
Yeah, I think the prosperity mindset is something. I agree with you. If you can change your way of thinking, that it is helpful. I'm not going to go so far as to believe in that secret stuff. Sorry if you do. That I think is just insane. But there is a difference between adjusting your expectations to allow yourself to find things and deluding yourself. There is a difference between the two. And I think a lot of people go so far over the edge they delude themselves. And that isn't helpful either, because they're not preparing for reality. And they're not doing the work. They're just thinking everything's just going to turn out fine. I know a lot of people like that. Everything's going to turn out fine, and guess what? It doesn't.
I have a crazy idea. Let's let our guest speak.
You guys drag me into this conversation when I say, "Oh, Dave is just he's." So I'm explaining exactly how I am, and now we can get on with the show.
Is there a time limit on the show? I mean,
there is in 2.0.
Okay, I just was wondering. So this was in no way, Dave, just so you know, this was in no way like an opportunity for them to beat you up. Just so you know. I'm not a plan.
Everything is an opportunity for us to beat him up.
Okay, well, I'm not engaged in that. I haven't met you in person yet. So
I know when I get to Texas, a black bag is going to go over my head, and I'm going to be
programmed. Like half of our shows end up being an opportunity to beat Dave.
And all of BOUs.
Oh my gosh. Well, I am right in the middle, Dave, between the people who are just law of attraction, people who sit in their living room and chant, and the people who are maybe on your end of the spectrum, as what you would call a realist, because I think anyone who calls himself a realist is indeed a pessimist. I think there's a leaning, right? There's a kind of a line going. Okay, good.
I think Sean is a really good example of somebody that is positive thinking, and that works out for him because he sees opportunities that somebody like me would be closed off to. So I completely, you know, I'm not opposed to, you know, what you guys are saying here. I'm just defining where I am on the spectrum.
Got it. Well, and I also believe that then you have to write the words. The words don't write themselves.
Right.
There are a lot of people that are the first to say to me, oh, I've thought about writing a book for many, many years. How do you write all those books? And I say, well, I put my ass in a chair and I write the words.
Yeah.
So I think there's craft development and then there's mindset development. And so that's where my philosophy comes together, is working on the mindset, because if you're not looking, and so when you go outside and you look for money, I go on a walk with one of my girlfriends every Saturday morning and we always find money. She has a jar in her kitchen of all the money we find in her neighborhood just walking 5 miles, but we always find money. And so the first time we found a penny, I said, I always find money when I'm out, and we found money, and she said, oh, those are pennies from my grandmother. And I said, we have to talk to Grandma because she needs to send the money that folds.
What do you look for when you go on a walk, Dave?
Criminals, people looking to take what I have. That's why I carry a decoy wallet. Do you have a decoy wallet?
I don't have one.
Oh, you're not prepared for reality. We got to talk.
Well, I do have a go bag. You'll be happy to know.
Okay, that's good.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So I'm gaining a little point, I think. Half a point.
So what are some practical things we can do here to improve the prosperity mindset for writers?
Well, so I'll give one that's an obvious one, which is to have a plan. So I hear you guys say all the time in our production schedule. So you obviously have a plan and you work the plan. So having a plan, in essence, underneath that plan, so if we picture a plan as a tabletop, there's a belief, right? We believe that we can have the plan. If you write down a plan, but inside you don't believe you can achieve the plan, you actually won't execute on it. There's someone out there that says, oh, I really should write 500 words a day, but I'm not going to write 500 words a day, but I'm going to write it down because somebody said it was a good idea to have a plan. So having a plan is that one practical thing, which I'm sure you have, yes? You have plans?
Yeah. No,
yes.
We have lots of plans.
Yes, and then one of the things so I did the Prosperity for Writers course first because I wanted to kind of try my thought process on some real life guinea pigs to see if what I was thinking for writers would work, and it did. And one of the first things I taught them was to bolo. And so from crime dramas, if you watch like Law and Order, they'll say, you know, what does the suspect look like? Let's put out a bolo on him, like be on the lookout. And so part of that...
I have one of those on my wall.
You have a bolo?
Of various people I need.
For everybody, it just has a Venn diagram of all of humanity.
Johnny, you're on there.
Awesome. As long as I'm not on there, then it's okay.
No, not yet. The show's not over, though.
Oh, dear. Okay. I'm getting concerned. Maybe I need a decoy wallet. I'm going to have to consider. Anyway, so if you put out a bolo for the things that you want, and one of the things that I just had them look for was evidence of abundance. So evidence of abundance of anything. So at the time, Sean, you're here too, and we just had rain like every day for 3 years. Right? There was an abundance of rain.
Yes, it was. I don't think of abundance as a good word in this context, but yeah.
Right, but you see, but I just wanted them.
Diarrhea.
Yeah. You're getting there. Steve. You're like, it's just what you're looking
the
for.
mindset. Yeah, okay.
Is maybe a little skewed, but yes, you're on the right track. But look for everything you see in abundance, whatever it is.
Danger.
Potentially positive is where I was going to go with that. Yeah, so good television, good books, good people, and most specifically, people that are making money from their writing. And not necessarily the Mark Dawsons and Joanna Penns, and not even the people that would look at you guys and go, well, of course they have the self-publishing podcast. They publish a book every week, and of course they're prosperous writers. They're special. I'm not special. I was actually kind of thinking, just look for the mid-listers. Look for the people that are making a few $1,000s a month. Look for the people that have been able to quit that full-time miserable job and stay home and work on their craft and write more and more and more books. And I was corresponding with someone on Facebook last night, and she said, I'm almost done with my first book. What do I do? And I said, write your second and third books and read, write, publish, repeat. And all the other books that are about self-publishing, and build your list. Like, here are some very basic things that you do, and then keep writing, and then keep writing, and then keep writing. So BOLO, be on the lookout for evidence of what it is that you want to create in your own personal life that already exists elsewhere for somebody else. And thank goodness there is somebody who has created whatever it is that you want.
Now I have to ask you a question.
Okay.
So this is where this is my test, basically. Okay, let's say I'm somebody that is selling a little bit, but not a lot right now, and I have a job that's paying my bills. Do I quit my job and invest more time in writing?
No, I would say no. I would say
you pass. Okay. A lot of people.
You're about to make his BOLO list.
I was about to just leave. a lot of these success people and the power of positive thinking and stuff like that. They will say, just put everything into it. Don't prepare for the worst at all. Don't have a job. If you want to do something, go out and do it and just make it happen. And hey, millions will rain from the sky. And I'm very opposed to that sort of thinking because it's not realistic. So you're based in reality, which I can definitely respect. So.
Well, I am based in reality. That's why I call what I do practical prosperity, because there is that one piece of I've got to be on the lookout for the thing that I want to create and see if I can follow the breadcrumbs, which is why I started listening to the self-publishing podcast. And P.S. and by the way, I have my little alarm that goes off every morning at 4:30, and it says, get your ass out of bed and go write something.
Is that an alarm Sean's voice?
Yes. I had him record it for me before. Yes. Yes.
I want to know where. Okay, so I'm trying to decide how to phrase this because there's a best way to phrase it, and then there's maybe a more appropriate way to phrase it. But I think I have a good enough bead on you, Honoree, to go ahead and just say it.
Yeah,
right.
Do
to
it.
Just go ahead and. So I want to know where arrogance can slot into this, right? Or because what was funny was Honoree was at our summit, and she gets up and she says, so we want to do this thing where we travel around because we're rich, we're doing well, right? And so there's that whole thing too, but honestly, I think that if you are ashamed of any success that you might get, you are teaching yourself to look away.
Yeah, so I don't think arrogance has any place in it, but I do think you have to have confidence and self-belief. And I like any belief, if you don't have legs underneath it, if you don't believe you can do it, you're not going to do it. So what I was referring to, just so I can close the loop for people that are going to think I'm an asshole now, is...
No, it's an affectionate thing.
Johnny.
It's an affectionate thing, is that when I wanted to have a podcast with my husband, because we are having a bus built. We're going to live on a bus, not an RV, like a real full bus chassis, and it's kind of fancy. And everything that we found was, here's how you can live on an RV for $17 a day. And it's like, well, I don't need to live on it for $17 a day. I have more than that. I have an abundance. So what's the lifestyle that I can live? And then other people are doing it too. There's a whole faction of people that are mobile entrepreneurs. The Tropical Entrepreneurs, a podcast about running all over the universe and just living your life and having internet income and different kinds of things. Not anything that I do, but there are lots of people that do that. So that's where that came from. We weren't coming from a poverty mindset or a limited mindset. It was, hey, we're going to live this life, and so we want to have a podcast about that. So that's where that came from. But
arrogance is inflammatory. I guess I just meant pride, let's say. Not being ashamed of yeah, I'm doing okay. That's fine. I'm not going to apologize for it.
Well, I think we're not taught to do that. If in Australia they call it the tall poppy syndrome, right? If you grow too big, then you have a bunch of other people that will come along and kind of even you out. And so we live in a society where people like to build someone up, and then the minute they're up, they go, oh wait, you're up the flagpole, now I can see your ass, and I'm going to shoot at it. And that's
I subscribe to that theory. I think, I've always toned down whatever success we have just because I People are like that. They do build you up just to bring you down.
Yes. Well, I just wanted to say too, I'm looking forward to your 1-star review on my book, Dave.
I don't do that. I am not a hater. I would never do that. If I didn't like something, I wouldn't say anything. I just keep my mouth shut.
Yes, I am the same way. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. But if you wanted to give it credibility, you could give me maybe a 2.5-star review.
I'll read it and see if it changes my mindset.
Ooh, that would be
to
fun.
become more like Sean.
I actually do have another separate question.
Sure.
Do you know where I can get a good book cover designed?
I do. Would you like me to do the ad read? I think I've heard it enough times.
I would.
Just give your honest answer. Just give your straight. What's this ad read thing? Where would I get a book cover designed, Honoree?
I think 99 Designs would actually like a more positive. I'm not doing it. I think they would like a more positive ad read than the ones I've been giving. So go right ahead.
All right, let's do prosperity-related cover design for writers.
Yes.
Ooh. Well, it would be 99designs.com/SPP.
It would.
Yes, it would be.
But why? What makes them so good, and what makes them so prosperity mindseted?
Right. Remember, we have a pessimist in our midst here. You got to convince him.
Yeah. I could lose a lot with
literally
with a book.
means you have nothing to lose.
Okay, well, Dave, so here's how I understand 99 Designs. So let me explain it to you from I'm just a civilian, right? I'm not a member of the podcast. Finding a good book cover designer is particularly challenging, and so you don't always know what you want, and you don't always know what you like. Yes, pretty much virtually impossible. However,
you may as well just give up and stop writing.
No, you should keep writing, but then you should also go to 99designs.com/SPP, and they will do a contest. And so designers from all over the world, I think Universe actually, design a book cover that they think you would like based on your description, and then you get to choose and work with the designer that you like the most, who will bring to life your book.
I wonder if they have designers on Asgard. That would be incredible.
Asgard is this?
Thor. Thor does cover designs. I'm sorry, I'm dropping a comic reference with Johnny. So.
All right. So it's just I'm glad that we spontaneously had the discussion because if you want to get a good cover design, go to 99designs.com/SPP and you get the free Power Pack upgrade valued at $99, which you get more designer time and attention. So just to get us right back on topic, because we were on topic, where were we before we remained on topic a minute ago?
Well, we were talking about arrogance and bus living and prosperity mindset.
Yes, or pride.
Or pride.
Well, I think pride, arrogance, and immediately I go to Johnny's abs.
Okay, well, here's the difference. I think it's perfectly fine to be, we've had this conversation before about ego, right? And I think ego is considered often a 4-letter word. The ego is a bad thing, and I strongly feel that ego is a good thing. What's bad is using your ego to harm somebody else, or to make somebody else feel bad, or that's bad ego. But having ego just means that you have big ideas and you think that you can do them, and I think that. The three of us, Dave included, we do have a lot of ego. We think that we have these big ideas and we want to go out and do them, and we do them. But I don't think we ever make other people feel bad, about what they are or are not doing. And I think that's the difference between harmful arrogance, when you're always right and no one else is right, and you put other people down for feeling differently than you or behaving differently than you. I think that's a negative. But I think having ego to think I can do this, I'm capable, I have this big idea, and I'm going to go out and do it, and I'm going to be successful. That's a good thing.
Well, and I want to just share a quick example. I'm in this forum on Facebook, and somebody actually said, "Has anybody had any success with self-publishing?" And I said, "Well, I have, and I'm happy to field some questions." And when I wrote Tall Order, which was my first book, and so it's funny because I was listening to last week's episode where you were talking about you can tell what people's wounds are from their first book, and I was thinking, oh, I'm so glad I wrote nonfiction instead of fiction. A lot of bodies would have been in the book. if it were a fictional story. But I heard Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield say, do 7 things every day to market your book and call everybody you know and ask them to buy a book. So once I had, was in the process of publishing my book, which, for those that don't know, it's you upload the files to the printer, right? I ordered 5,000 books, but I pre-sold 11,000 copies, privately.
That's
and
nuts.
but nobody told me I couldn't. And so now when someone says I can't do it, I'm like, don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it. Because no one said the average book sells 5 copies and they're all to your Aunt Susan, right? They just said, go sell a bunch of books by asking everybody to buy between 10 and 100 books. And I happened to have 3 different companies that I worked with as a business coach who said, oh, well, we'll just take 1,000 copies, just ship them directly to us. And I went, okay.
Okay,
So
I could never do that.
I'd like to hop in on it because you just raised something that I don't get a chance to talk about often, and it's one of my favorite things. So one of the things that I've noticed, I know a lot of crazy entrepreneurs. Sean is really calm by the definition of a lot of. My favorite is Clay Collins. Like, I love Clay. Clay's fantastic. Out of his mind. Like, he wouldn't mind, right? He's all over the place. And so are, like, a lot of people I know. They're distractible. I always say that some of my best entrepreneur friends are nuts, right? Like, and the reason
you have to be.
Yeah, it's because nobody told a lot of these people that they couldn't do the things that they did. And so it's like, oh, well, I didn't know that was wrong. I guess I have this multi-million-dollar company now. Sorry. And that's the sort of thing, like the ignorance of the, quote, rules is something that I've definitely seen be a success factor.
I'm going to agree with you here because, and that is one of the things that I try to change in my son. I don't want my son to be as limited as I am in his thinking. I want him to be more like Sean, to believe that anything is possible and not just think everything is doomed. And one of the things I've noticed is that the people that are the loudest, the haters that are the loudest, are people that basically, it is that tall poppy syndrome. They haven't made it yet, or they've made it in a slightly different way. So they don't want to see you making it because you're not following the rules, and they want you to follow these rules and screw you for trying to do something
because it validates their path.
Yeah, it validates it, but it also, and I think a lot of these people aren't successful, and that's why they have this idea of rules in place. Like, if only people follow the rules, like everything should be an exact way, therefore, the world will work out perfect. But that isn't the way the world works. And if you're truly a cynical realist, then you should understand that the world doesn't work that way, and the only way anything ever gets done is by people who are willing to do their own thing, to think differently, and that is something that I do recognize in myself that I do not have, and I wish I was made differently. I don't think I can change myself lot in that area. Well, I don't believe you. I think if you're, I think some people could change. I think, like me, I think I'm just broken, and I don't think that. It's like telling you right now not to think about a pink elephant in the room. You're going to think about the pink elephant no matter what, because I just said don't think about it, and trying to rewire my own brain. And I tried.
Don't think about Johnny Naked.
Yeah. Oh God, I gotta go.
Yes, but Dave, you have told us several times on this show and on BOU about things that have changed about you. The one that springs to mind is when you wrote the blog post about how Clive Barker changed. Yes, I think beliefs can change, but I think that and that was like a negative thing that changed for the better, because when I was growing up, I was a little bit homophobic, and that changed, and I'm glad that it was a negative thing that changed. But I think the core beliefs that you have, like, about yourself, and so I think are far more difficult to change. Maybe it can be done by better people than me, but I just have a difficult time. And I'm trying. Also think that Sean has said that your attitudes regarding the business and stuff have changed, and taking risks and going out there and all that.
Okay.
I feel like we need to have some time.
It's a slow glacial. Yeah, we need therapy sessions.
Yeah,
no,
I think David's changed in 7 years since I've known him. I think it's a slow process, and I think that you can't beat yourself up because you're not where you want to be. it's a process, not an event, and you need to understand that you're peeling layers back, and Dave is one fucked up onion.
I want to get a shirt for him.
My shadow is shedding skin.
Well, when you come to Austin, Dave, I'll buy you coffee or a cocktail, and we'll have a conversation.
Diet Pepsi?
Diet Pepsi?
Yeah, that's my drug of choice.
Or a wine cooler. He'll also
Or a wine cooler, okay. Wow. Is it 1980?
I'm a manly man.
No one told me.
I want a Zima. Can you get me a Zima?
He's a Bartles and James guy.
Okay.
So what are some other tools maybe that people can work on to get more prosperous minded?
Well, so what are you asking for? Like practical things like Scrivener or 99
No,
Design?
we know all about Scrivener. We know all about Scrivener. How do we just big picture, like how do we
I think he means like you going on a walk and looking for things that are abundant. Like what are like if Dave is our
either that or ayahuasca. It's
right. So like what are things that anybody, and if Dave is our stand-in for the everyman here, what are things that what are things that Dave could do because he's convinced that he can't change, and we're convinced that he can. So what are things that he can do to slowly peel those layers back?
Well, if I were working with Dave only, and Dave is my project,
you'd be a broken person too.
No, and so here's the thing: is what I hear you saying, and I know you know this about yourself. So I'm not talking directly to you. I'm talking to you, whoever is listening. And whatever comes out of your mouth is what you're telling your subconscious mind. So the very first thing you can do is change your self-talk. So I have a friend who wants to be a speaker and an author, and yet every time I see her or talk to her, she says, I'm a corporate rat on the wheel. I'm a corporate rat on the wheel. And so she's just reinforcing that. And so, of course, she stays at her cushy corporate job and doesn't force herself to sit down and also write the words and plan the speeches and work on her speaking business. So the very first thing you have to do is really notice, like, what's the BS that's coming out of my mouth that does not serve me? Because if you want to be a prosperous writer, saying to yourself, but that's possible for everybody but me, or I don't really write that good, or I'm broken, like, please don't ever say that again. That just breaks my heart. When you say that, literally, it bothers me that you would say that, and you've said it a lot in the conversation, and I know that you might think that it's funny, but that's the very first thing that I would have anyone do is, like, watch what's coming out of your mouth and stop it. If nothing else, just don't say it. You can think, I am broken.
Or save it for BOU.
Or save it for something that I don't have to listen to. Or
oh, man. I'm gonna go in the corner now.
Or change it to I'm getting better. I've gotten better and I'm getting better. Every day I'm getting better and better. And that's one of the things that you can say is if I am an amazing positive person, it makes you want to throw up in your mouth a little bit because that's too positive for you, then you could say, you know what, I'm getting better, I'm progressing, I'm making progress.
I hate things less today than yesterday. Try it.
No.
The world is a little less sucky.
You're killing me. Thank you.
You've met your match.
Killing me. It's all right.
This is matter and antimatter is what we're watching.
I am an endless well of positivity, so bring it on.
I see your next book title is going to somehow be spawned by this podcast. I don't know.
Yeah, it's called I Give Up.
Yeah.
I know that when
Positive thinking is bullshit.
So if you guys remember when I joined the podcast, so go back in time to the Wayback Machine 3.5 years ago, and these guys, Sean and Dave, were already making a living mostly, if not entirely, with writing. I was not. I just had the one book, and it sold like 6 copies or something. So I was very much not in a position to be saying that I was, I'm a successful writer, I'm a prosperous writer. But years even before that, there were a few little things that I distinctly remember. I know that one of the defining moments for me as a writer was when I got married, and you have to say what your occupation is. Mm-hmm. And I was writing like ad copy or whatever, but I didn't say that I was a copywriter. I I was a writer, like, and I just remember that. I just remember that was kind of a thing, like, oh, I'm a writer. Like I wrote it. It was an official document that was submitted at the courthouse, and my email address at the time had writer in it, and just little things like that.
Yes.
And I think that all of that just kind of like, I'm a writer. I remember telling a few people at events or something where we were with other people, and well, what do you do? I'm a writer. And then they'd of course say, well, what do you write? And I'd have to admit that I wasn't writing books. But I think that sort of thing too, like go ahead and just get used to talking to other people, if not to yourself, about what it is that you're doing.
Johnny, I don't want to ramble on this because I don't really remember. I remember there's a story about your friend or something where it was a pro writer thing. It would go really well with this story, but I don't. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about? It was like the way someone was referring to you, or you were referring to them, or they called themselves like the best writer they knew.
Oh, yeah, I know that story. It makes me look kind of like a dick. So I guess I got to tell it now. Okay, so thanks though, Sean. So, my God, and this is just, you chalk some of this up to being an arrogant little shit.
You could have just said, I don't remember.
I could have, but now I want to tell it.
Then you just prod more.
Then I'm burying it. So you got to give me some forgiveness, guys. I was like 20 at the time, and I had a history class. It was something. It wasn't a writing class. I didn't take any creative writing classes or anything like that. And oh my God, I feel like such a fucker even saying this. So we had to write an essay or something, and I did. It was like about history or something, and I turned it in, and it was graded by the TA, not the professor. And I just remember that I got a lot of corrections, not on the historical content of the essay, but on this is wordy. And this is, you should put a period here. Like, shit, are you kidding me? Like, what an asshole. And so I was ranting about this to my boss/friend at the time at the place that was fictionalized in the Bialy Pimps, the Bagel Deli. And I was just going on and on about this asshole who dared to, have something to say about my writing style in this history essay. And then, of course, the punchline was that I then declared that I was the best writer I knew. And he was like, you little asshole, like you're the best writer you know. But then I ran across that exact same quote in like this list of successful author quotes where it says you have to believe I'm the quote, I'm the best writer I know. And it was word for word. And that's the story that I told Sean. But it makes me look like a fucker.
Well, I think the first thing you have to think is you're a writer. Like I remember when I was coaching back when I lived in Las Vegas, there was Las Vegas Magazine, and I was coaching the assistant to the editor, and she wanted to be a writer, and I made her stand up in the restaurant and say, I am a writer, because she was like, but I'm an executive assistant. And I said, if you want to be a writer, then you're a writer. And now she's a full-time food writer. She travels all over the world and eats food and writes about it, which is just an amazing thing. And she's a co-author in one of my books. I want Dave to do that.
I know I'm a writer. I have more trouble.
No, I mean travel around the world and be a food critic.
Oh God!
All right, Honoree, what's the your book is Prosperity for Writers, or Writer's Guide to Creating Abundance. Is that Amazon on your web? Where do you want people to go for
Amazon.
that?
It's on Amazon.
Amazon. Go to Amazon, folks. Anything else you want people to know about? If they want to be in touch with you, if they want to.
They can come to my website, which is honoreecorder.com. I'm on Twitter. I'm at Honoree pretty much everywhere. So. And
Honoree is Honoree, and Corder is Corder, folks.
Yes.
So there you go. And I guess that's about it. So thank you so much for being on. This is fun. I look forward to getting together again in person. Stick around after I say goodbye. Don't drop off.
Okay.
And I guess that's about it. So thanks everybody for listening to Self Publishing Podcast, and we will see you next week.